Welcome to the Ashby Room, where we talk to students in the Haas Executive MBA program. My name is Edward, and today I'm joined by Vincent Salazar. He's a managing director at Deloitte, where he oversees consumer gaming and hospitality. In this episode, we talk about Vincent's early life as a Mexican-American immigrant, his keys to success climbing the corporate ladder, and finally, what he plans to do with his MBA. Without further ado, please enjoy this pleasant conversation with Vincent.
I almost collapsed. And I'm like, oh my God, it's day one. Maybe I should go to sleep early today.
Yeah, but then you realize all the awesome people that you're surrounded with, and you're like, okay, I'm willing to put in the extra effort to hang around with them at night. That's kind of my trivia every time I'm here. It's like my dilemma, not trivia. It's like, all right, I'm tired. I should probably put in some homework, but then the people, it's like, it's amazing how they power you through things.
Yeah, you've got the passive way where it's like, oh, I just kind of just want to hang out with these people. And then you have people actively like, where are you?
Yes.
Come down.
Yes. But it's awesome. I think that you kind of know the people that are going to hang out a little longer than the rest of them. Yeah. I think I'm part of that group. You're part of that group. And there's a few other people that you're like, yeah, they're going to be the last one standing.
I think it was Eric from the 24s on our orientation. He was like, yeah, we do this game where we try to make someone miss class the next day. And it was like, block one. Block one, we had some people come really late to class.
Should we do that? That's a good question. We can. It will be fun, but I kind of feel guilty.
We're all adults, right? They can do what they want.
Yeah. Well, but some of them now, I kind of feel like this is different because, you have your professional life, you have your personal life, and then you have your student life now. And so to some degree, like someone like me that now has children, and, there's a level of a commitment that comes with having children. So you kind of reserve yourself and not going out as often. And then when you come back to a student, there's a couple of things that happen. You reflect that when you were a student when you were younger, and now when you're a student now, you're hanging around with awesome people. You're like, okay, I'm willing to take that extra drink, that shot, and go the extra mile, even though. The decision's not like fully on you. I think it's like emotion has a.
It's a social thing too. Like you don't want to miss out. Are you calling your kids every night? Calling your wife? I
do. Yeah, okay. I FaceTime them. So
yeah. You're going above and beyond already. Right?
I think it's important. My parents were not around a lot because they had to work a lot when I was growing up, and so for me to be there for them and granted, I have no regrets. My parents were awesome. They did an amazing job, but they migrated, so it was a lot harder for them.
Yeah. You want to go into it a little bit? Where are you from? Where's your family from?
Yeah, I can totally do that. My parents, and I was born in Mexico. We're from Guadalajara. It's the second biggest city in Mexico. Probably you've heard of mariachis, and a lot of the food you see in the typical Mexican restaurant actually originates from that city and that state. So when we were, when I was like around 6 or 7, we migrated to the United States, and with 3 brothers, 3 sisters, plus myself. So I'm the 7th child. And then we migrated to LA. So that's where I grew up. So
how young were you when you migrated?
I was 7.
7?
Yeah.
That's like being an Asian immigrant, a child of Asian immigrants. We've had this discussion with my wife and friends of like, there's like a sweet spot in age where if you come when you're too old, it's very hard to assimilate. And it feels like around 12 years old. Like if you come as a teenager, you'll kind of always have a slight accent, no matter how hard you try. This is not 100% of the time. But for people who came 10 and under, it's always been like, couldn't tell that they came from China or something. So it's interesting, this idea of assimilating In LA, I think it's a bigger Mexican population. Was it hard? Was it easy? What was it like?
You will assume that it will be easier, but I think that culturally, whether you're come from Mexican descent, because I've seen this and I share this with other colleagues that come from, Asia or India or other things, it's not just the overall population that judges you, even your own community. And so, when you kind of move into a city where everybody looks like you, then they start kind of parsing out, okay, well, are you from here, or are you just migrated like last year or this year? And I think there's a level of not reject, but you kind of get called out for like, oh, well, you're not really here, you're here kind of deal.
It sounds like it's mostly been you're not American enough. Have you ever gotten the opposite, where it's like you're kind of forgetting your roots?
Yeah, I think any immigrant kind of struggles with that, and I think it's a beautiful thing to some degree, right? That you get stuck in the middle, for lack of a better term, right? So you
I completely identify. Yeah.
So you're not, in my case, I am not Mexican enough for people that are Mexican or they just migrated to the U.S. because I speak Spanish with an accent to some degree, and some of the lingo I just don't get it. I am totally fluent, but they know like, oh, this guy didn't grow up in Mexico. Or you're not American enough because you might have a slight accent in some words, or some of the things that you do, the music you like, the things you laughed, even the TV that you might choose to watch or some degree. Because I think in life, your version of things that you have experienced. And so for me, like growing up, it was all like Spanish, telenovelas, like music and stuff like that. And so I don't think people that see me like in a professional environment know that I kind of like that stuff because I was experiencing growing up. So totally can assimilate with somebody from a different background, like Asian, or Indian, or
There's a lot of that in the Bay Area, but you're actually in Las Vegas,
right?
Did your career start in Vegas, or where can let's do that?
Yeah.
Let's do where you work at right now, like title, company, and then as far back as you want, how it started.
No, absolutely. So I am a managing director for Deloitte & Touche, which is the biggest accounting firm in the world. So
might have heard of it.
Might have heard of it. We might do your audit. Don't call me or judge me.
We're a startup.
And so, my career did start in Vegas. I was a young college graduate 17 years ago. And 17 years ago, it was not easy to find a job. So I applied to so many different places. I couldn't land a job anywhere. And then eventually this job popped out in Vegas. And the young recent college graduate that I was 17 years ago, I was like, you know what? Vegas sounds like a lot of fun. And plus I'm going to get a job. So I moved there with the plan of, just like any other young person from LA, I'm going to go party and I'm going to have fun. And then I'm going to have a job and I'll move back home, right? Well, for me, that going back home never materialized. I'm still in Vegas. I'm still working for Deloitte. I'm very thankful for my career. I feel extremely blessed and successful. But quite honestly, for me, that's part of me, but it's not whole me. The whole me, it's a different side, and it's about paying it forward, giving back to community, and the whole DEI initiative that started. It's always been there, I think, for a firm like Deloitte, but just like any other company, I think that after Floyd and all that happened, they really stepped it up, and I'm glad they did, because I kind of feel like it's one of those things that if you come from a minority background, whether you're Latinx, you're Asian, you're Black, you have experienced that to some point or degree. I think it's good that we talk about it because it's the right thing to do.
Has there been a tangible initiative from Deloitte that you might want to call out for DEI?
You know, Deloitte's always been extremely progressive. And if I could mirror like the corporate accounting world and the D&I initiatives that they have, and don't get me wrong, they're not perfect by any means. I don't think anybody has a solution for that. And if you claim you have a solution for that, it's like everything else. You're probably going to have to relook at yourself, and,
Right.
and it's a constant moving target. You can't just say it's one and done. Like it's a continuous thing. But I compare it to kind of like the principles that, a school like Cal Berkeley has. It's always known for being progressive thinkers, inclusive and whatnot. We're not to that standard that Cal Berkeley has had over the years, but when you compare it to our peers, I feel that we are kind of the Cal Berkeley of that. I've been in the firm for 17 years, Deloitte, and over the 17 years that I've been there, we have had at least 2 to 3 CEO who are women, one Hispanic CEO, and yeah, that's like I'm talking like early 2000s, which is kind of unheard of. So it's always been kind of part of the DNA of the firm. And I mean, granted, you can say that I'm biased because I worked there, but I've seen it, and even before it got popular, it's always been a very strong DEI first firm.
Yeah. From outside of consulting perspective, I think of it historically as the industry as being pretty white male, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about, or maybe speaking to a young Black, Asian, Indian person trying to get into consulting? Can you talk about your experience joining the world and moving up the ranks? Because when you hear managing director, what was the acronym? It was like PPMD.
Yeah, at Deloitte, you kind of reach the top when you refer to PPMDs. And yes, it's either partner, principal, manager, director. So I do, I am in that position.
Yeah, it feels like this monolith, but how did you advance? Was it faster than normal? Was it a fighting tooth and nail? Can you talk about your career progression?
Yeah, I quite honestly, it's been a good journey for me. I never felt disadvantaged based on my background. Sometimes I have an accent. I never felt that way. I never felt like, I was kind of swimming upriver. It's from a firm perspective, right? And for us, we're in professional services. You always have the client side. I can tell you that there's been instances where, I have had clients that they're not as inclusive. So I did struggle with that a little bit, where, I am the person who can deliver the project, when I was, like a senior consultant or a manager in that level. Yet when I will go to the board and try to explain a solution for them that they're paying us money to do, they'll be like, okay, yeah, that's great. And you kind of sense like, well, why you're disqualifying my opinion? Like, I'm doing this because I'm capable. But yet my boss at the time, who happened to be a white male, he would explain the same thing that I will have because we will work on the same projects together. They'll be like, oh, yeah, no, that totally makes sense. We should do what you just said. I'm like, I just told you the same thing. And it got to the point that sometimes, I would go to like a board of directors and I would explain that. And you can tell one in their body language that you're like, oh, we got this person versus the other person. And second, you can tell that even though I will have the same solution and the same delivery, the engagement and how they respected my opinion as a professional was a lot different than somebody who came from a different background.
Have you seen a shift from the client side, perhaps, from 17 years ago to now? Do you encounter it less? It's the same?
I definitely encounter it less. I think that overall, going back to the whole concept about the whole DEI initiative, really, really taking up some steam over the last few years, I can tell you that it's definitely has gotten better. But, as we're learning in like our data classes and our econ classes, is this really a result of people becoming more aware of things, one, or is it a result because quite honestly, some of those folks that I was dealing at the board level, you said it, they were white males, and it's just a matter that they're getting replaced by younger people because they're timing out. If you want my honest opinion, I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah. I think I would preface, right? It's like there's nothing wrong with, there's nothing malicious about it. Or I never see it from my interactions professionally. Whenever I felt like my opinion was discounted because I wasn't white male, I never felt it was malicious. It was just a subconscious bias to find value in the familiar, perhaps. And I never took offense. That being said, it did feel a little headwinds sometimes. Okay, I think in the Army it was like that way. It's like, oh well, I'm not being looked at for a school or something, which it's kind of just favorites. Oh, we think he'll be good because he runs fast, but we all run fast. Like, so it was a bit of, okay, what is the difference? You're just kind of left to fill the gaps yourself. As far as like a skill or a competence through your career, would you say there's something that you've been really good at and that's why you've made it to PPMD?
I gotta say yes, and it's something that I can tie back to my upbringing and culturally. I think that when you're a minority, whether you're Latinx, Asian, Black, we always have that chip on our shoulder that we have to run extra fast to, get equal treatment. Don't get me wrong, I do believe things are changing for the good and we don't have to run as fast, it's really good. But you always kind of have that chip on your shoulder that you have to work a little bit extra, right? And put in the extra effort to try to get ahead. And to some degree, that is the equilibrium to what we experience in the corporate world. I think that that's one of my skills that I have that have served me extremely well. I've learned that from my parents. I learned it from growing up. I was the guy or the kid that will, after school, I will go help my mom clean offices, the same offices that I work on now, and I will watch the professional do the thing, working late, scratching their head, trying to solve a problem for company X. I was the kid that will be the one doing the vacuum, cleaning up the trash, cleaning the bathrooms and stuff like that. And now I'm on the other side, right? But you never kind of lose that. You always kind of feel like, if you want something, it's going to come through hard work, and that's okay. You having a good work ethic. It's something that any person who it's an immigrant or that comes from a minority background, we have that. And I think that I wish more people will see that value in them. Because in my experience, at the end of the day, you can be extremely smart. Because I work with a lot of smart individuals, but I think at the end of the day, what separates you above and beyond of many other people that are, have very similar qualifications as your work ethic.
Yeah. I had a very similar conversation with a first or child of immigrants, a Filipino friend. She's also very hardworking. That's probably one of the major skills, right? Just outdrives the rest. And she was going in about one of her coworkers, very American. Her child didn't have the same drive or work ethic or sense of responsibility, and she was explaining, because he never had the same burden growing up. And I was reminded, I was like, thinking through it. I'm like, well, there's plenty of immigrants, children of immigrants that stay poor. It's a major problem, right? And there's plenty of American, like born and raised American, generations back, can trace back, right? They stay rich and they're hardworking. It's not a dichotomy, but I feel like there's a stronger or more common occurrence of, well, my parents sacrificed a lot to get me here, or they gave up something, their life in another country for the opportunity, and not necessarily for themselves, but for us, right? And so there's that burden, and the idea that I need to succeed. Like, I chose engineering, you chose accounting. They're very practical majors, studies. It's like art wasn't an idea. Something in the humanities wasn't a viable option when you're talking about, I'm just trying to feed the family. And it's not that dire, but I think that's the mindset of somebody like who didn't grow up with much. That being said, we're at a really top university in the U.S., very expensive university. What are your goals? Why did you decide to apply? And then afterwards, what are you looking to do?
Yeah. So totally agree with the whole concept about being a top university. It makes me very proud to be part of this program. You know, Cal Berkeley, quite honestly, it's always been one of those schools that everybody looks around and has so much respect of it, right? But I think the respect and value comes from just not just from academics, but the whole inclusion and the whole concept about we're human first. And I can tell you that as somebody who went through a lot of other very good schools, and I was lucky enough to be admitted to all those schools that I applied to, this felt home for me, you know? And so it's just the way they go about recruiting and getting to know you at the personal level and what makes you. I get you're successful. I get you do this and that at work, but are you a good person? Are you human? Are you able to connect? Because quite honestly, I think at the end of the day, that's part of probably what makes you successful at work. And so when it comes down to the school, you know, I'm super humble and excited to be here. You know, it's an honor for me to be here. It's an honor that they consider me to be part of this cohort. And I feel blessed, you know, that I get to meet people like you and everybody in the cohort. You know, I feel like if I needed something, I can just ask you guys and give you the reasons, and you guys will be like, got it, done. You know, it's be done tomorrow. And it's something that you don't get that in the corporate world, honestly. You will over time, and you can pick and choose people that along the way will be able to do that for you. But in a place like this, it's just like they handpick people, and they know that when you go to that, you know, first immersion, the whole intro, you start noticing that. And quite honestly, probably the reason why you're here too is because you notice those differences too. There was something else, and besides the whole accounting, algebra, econ, finance stuff that other schools can offer. Don't get me wrong; those skills are important. But at the end of the day, my experience as somebody who's a CPA and accountant and finance and deals with that every day, it comes down to people connection, and that is something that I admire from the school. Now, in terms of why did I enroll? You know, I have worked for Deloitte, as I've stated, and it's very fast moving. You know, clients, paid us money to figure out solutions, and it's a lot of trial and error. Quite honestly, with you, can you present me a solution? I'll figure out an answer for you. Yes, most likely I will. But I always feel that there's a better way to do that. You know, and coming to grad school, getting to a school like Berkeley, for me, it's figuring out how to make this better. I look at it like a toolbox, you know, and for me, this is like putting the extra tools that I'm definitely going to need as I move up to my next step of my career. because one of the things that I want to do and I have the drive to do is it's not just to get promoted to like a PP&B level at Deloitte, but become a leader and make it better for the people that come behind you. And I can go at it without tools, or I can really go to school, learn things, get to know people like you and everybody else that are going to help me elevate and you know, I can put in my tool set so I can achieve those things.
There were a couple of tangible things out of our leadership communications class, and even the one session of the building trust-based relationships. Those are the two soft skill courses that we've done so far. Was there anything that resonated with you right away? Something you wanted to use immediately?
Yeah, I mean the book about building trust-based relationships was actually done by Deloitte.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's something that it's ingrained within the firm, but it doesn't mean because, you know, you work for the firm that created the book or the, you know, whatever, it doesn't mean that you apply it well.
Right.
You know, it doesn't mean because you do X, Y, and Z that you excel on it. But with that being said, yes, there is a lot of things that you kind of know, right? But it's the framework that I think that it provides for you to be able to figure out where are the levers that you need to use, areas where you can leverage. You know, give an example at Deloitte, it's very relationship driven. You know, that's how we get business. If you were to ask me, what do you do for a living? I would never respond to you, oh, I'm a CPA, I'm an accountant. Quite honestly, I'm in the people business. And I'm in the people business of me building a relationship with you that if you need something, I am the person you're going to call when you have a challenge, when you have a problem, and that, you know, I'm going to come forward for you. So one of the things that, you know, the whole build a trust relationships too, that it does, it gives you kind of an equation, right? And the trust equation will be a good example for that. That you kind of have an idea that, hey, this falls here. But until you kind of have a visualization of how it works in a framework, and you can kind of conceptualize it and figure out, okay, this is what I do well, this is what I need to work on, then it's going to help you kind of elevate to the next level. Because without the equation, without, you know, somebody who came out with this theory or this framework, who probably was experiencing things that you are, I'm pretty sure you can get there eventually, but this will help you get there sooner and quicker and probably better.
It's a good framework, right? So for the audience, that feels very weird to say, but the trust equation is the sum of your credibility, your consistency, and your intimacy divided by your self-orientation. So call it narcissism, call it your self-centeredness. It takes away from your trust score, if you will. And the trust score is kind of meaningless on its own. What was useful was we did a survey, a self-assessment, and then a survey with our peers. And we basically compared grades. And I think almost everybody, I can't say that, most people that I talk to about their scores, they all scored themselves a little lower than their peers did. And call it, maybe it's a Berkeley thing, a humility thing. But the one I graded lower on was intimacy. And it's kind of a weird word. Maybe it's an English thing. But I think that had to do with like setting time away to step back, listen to people, and not make it about yourself. Did you have what was your identified field or attribute that you had to improve on?
I think for mine, it was intimacy and self-orientation. But in one of the things that the book that came out with the equation tells you, that those are the two skills that are going to be toughest. For me, intimacy was one of those areas where I feel that based on the relationships that I have with people, you know, I ranked myself with a higher score than I got, and the delta was I think 3 points. I think I got rated at 22 and I rated myself at 24, which now that I'm doing the math, it's actually 2. You know, it's still a very good score, but for some reason I had the perception that I had that level of relationship of intimacy with some people that, you know, the score came back that I didn't. It's strong, but it's not where I thought it was. And if anything, quite honestly, it's an opportunity for me to improve in that area. It's you know, like I was mentioning, it's the toughest, you know, that one in the self orientation. But I'm glad that I have the feedback, because you're never gonna know what to fix until somebody has. It's kind of, you know, for lack of a better term, they're blunt with you and tell you what needs to change.
Right. Now, you kind of hinted at it right after, maybe more tangentially, right after you graduate. Do you have any plans?
I do. I actually want to take my kids on a Disney cruise. You know, there's a lot of parents, and for those of you listening, I have 3 kids. I have a 5-year-old Victoria, 3-year-old Vincent, a 2-year-old Vivian. I'll start with the letter V if you're kind of keeping track. It was not my idea.
My parents did that to me and my brothers.
It was my wife's idea, and you know, they're my purpose in life, to be honest with you. So everything that I do, it's either with them in mind, or you know, to some degree, they have a big say of what I do in my career, my personal life, and my educational goals and whatnot.
And I mean, with the degree, with all the experience you'll be getting, you know, whatever opportunity comes up at Deloitte too, you'd be ready to take it on.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's one of the things that, quite honestly, I think it will separate me from a lot of peers at my firm. It's to some degree, it's the knowledge you obtain through a program like this. It's the connections and the people that you do. But I'm going to be selfish here, and I'm going to say it's the confidence that comes with it, you know, as well, because you see a lot of awesome people, just like you and everybody else in this cohort, that they do what they do every day without attitude. And for me, I borrow from that. I'm like, I got this. You know, if it's a difficult project, whatever, you know, I feel like I can totally conquer it, you know, because I have confidence in my skill set. And then I kind of think about my cohort and say, yeah, they will totally do this without attitude, you know, and this is awesome. So
that's awesome. Maybe last question. Who do you want to see next on this podcast?
You know, I think that, I don't know what goals you have for this podcast, but I think that if you can get all of us, it will be awesome. Because even in my experience, even the quietest person in our cohort has something special to share. In my opinion, everybody has something special to share. And I know it's a lot to ask because we don't go.
There's only so many classes.
There's so many classes in time. Obviously, it's the ultimate thing that, you know, we just don't get back unless you're in a DC universe or multi-universe of like whatever
time
travel stuff, which we know it doesn't exist. I wish it did though. I feel like everybody, especially if you think about the group that got here, even the quietest person has so much to offer. And I know that's not a possibility, but I think it's really hard for me to pinpoint people that have that I would like to see next, because quite honestly, as you asked me this question, I'm scanning through everybody's face and I'm wondering, I would like to learn more about her about this or him about this, or honestly, I think it's hard for me to pinpoint it because I think that everybody's special, general, and I think that this cohort is special. So I don't want to leave you with
That's okay too.
As a consultant, I hate like giving you the whole like, well, it depends answer, because I don't think that's a true answer.
Yeah.
And whoever gives you that answer, it's BS. Yeah, there's probably times when it depends, but this is not one of those times.
Selfishly, who would you want to, like, maybe you just haven't talked to that person a lot yet? or you don't need to answer.
Okay. There is oh my god, and I want to say her name's Stephanie. Stephanie Weinstein.
Yeah.
Okay. Very successful person, doctor, and she just keeps quiet.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of feel like she has reached a lot of like super amazing things in her life, and she just kind of looks at us and said like, yeah, you're gonna get there. You know, but I feel like she can have a lot to share, but it's just one of those people, to your point, that I wish I can open up the book and figure out all the amazing things that she can share. And maybe if you can tap her for this, she can open up and we can learn about her.
She kind of embodies the confidence without attitude, right? Because
Weinstein, yeah. Weinstein is
Weinstein,
the last. Yeah, Weinstein.
Like, I think one of the study sessions where I think Laura was leading one of the case studies, and Stephanie goes and she just basically like, I solved it. Here's what I did. And then people continue to disagree about it. But I think for the most part, she had solved it. It was like her answer was right.
Yeah.
But she said it so nonchalantly that it was like, oh, maybe we should argue about it a little more.
Yeah. It was too easy for everybody else.
Super competent.
Yeah.
I think she went to Dartmouth, went to Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
She's a doctor. I don't know why she's back in school for an MBA, but maybe we'll ask her next time.
Yeah, I think like people like that have a lot to offer because, to your point, they run they're not trying to like run up here. They're just kind of behind the scenes, but there's a level of confidence there that I'm like, this person's been there and done it.
Yeah.
And I wish they will share more, you know, because I want to be there and do it too. I need to learn from people like them. So.
Yeah, me too. Well, thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't too awkward.
No, not at all. I'm an open book, so happy to share any perspectives on things. You know, at the end of the day, it's just my humble opinion. So.
Yeah, that's great. Cool.
Awesome.